Welcome to Care Without Crisis, a video series by Vanguard Care Solutions.
Well, good morning, Karen. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. How are you this morning?
I'm well. Thank you for being here. I know you've lived the caregiving journey that most people don't fully understand until they're in it. Today, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about caregiving, what it really looks like, the moments that inspired change for you, and how families can feel more prepared and supported when they shift their life overnight, when things change. Because so many families, there's just that one day when love kind of becomes care, and suddenly you're making decisions you never planned for. Can you take me back to that one moment where everything changed for you as a caregiver?
So it was February. It was about the end of February. My husband had been to work all day. He was assistant manager at Safeway. And he came home and was sort of getting ready for bed. Because it was late at night. It was very late at night. And probably within an hour or so, I heard a thump. And he literally fell out of bed. So I really thought he was joking. Because my husband was a big jokester. He was really into playing tricks on people. And I was like, Kendrick, it's too late to be playing. Come on, we need to get some sleep. And I realized he wasn't able to get up. He kept trying to push himself up, but he wasn't able to get up. He wasn't able to talk. And so it didn't take long for me to realize that something was really wrong. So I called 911.
Okay.
And basically got my kids together and called his mother, and we made our way to the hospital.
Wow. So what was the next day like, that night, that next day? Can't imagine with the children. And what was that? Seems like it's a lot.
It was overwhelming. Probably by the next day, we had about 100 people at the hospital.
Wow.
Because by that time, my church family was there. Any family members or friends that I had, they were there. And people were wondering at Doctor's Hospital, who is this man? That we have all these people at the hospital. They told us, they called me in alone, and they said, we're sorry, but your husband is going to transition in about 20 minutes. He has a deep bleed in his stroke. It's in the middle of his head, and we can't drill. And we don't think we have enough time to send him to Johns Hopkins. So do whatever you need to do, get anybody you need here, and all we can do is just wait it out. So that's what we did. We just called family and friends, did prayer chains, and probably after time passed about an hour, they were like, well, he's still here. Okay. And they were almost like, we were wrong. Well, we don't know what's going on. So they sent him to intensive care. We spent a couple weeks there, and then we were on our way to Mount Vernon Rehab, which is a whole nother adventure of trying to find a rehab for him because of his age. He was only 39. And I didn't really want him in a place that didn't have some youth so that he would be able to have more support of people around him in the healing process. Yeah.
But that kind of leads to my next question. When that happened, where did you start?
Well, social workers, of course, at the hospital, they could help you with the rehabs. But one of his dear friends, John, he and I went to visit about 7 rehab centers. And we just asked questions. We went to see the facility. I didn't have a lot of time because once the hospital is ready to release you, you would either tell them where you prefer to go or they will send you someplace. They will send your loved one someplace because they're just trying to move on to the next person. So it took a lot of research. It took a lot of taking off work and managing my time, but I was very pleased with where he ended up spending time. And he was probably there for about 2 months.
Sounds like you had to figure out a lot on your own.
Absolutely. It's almost like you don't realize what you can do until you have to do it. Mm-hmm. And I did have to figure out a lot on my own, but I had good support systems. We had good friends. I had good family support system. My parents were healthy at the time, and they played a key role in sort of helping me to navigate everything I was trying to do. And my job, they were very gracious in how they let me work. My flexibility was different because I would go to work and go from work in DC to Mount Vernon every day. I did this every day and then come back home. And some days when I went to bed in my clothes. I'll just admit it. I said, I've had enough for the day. I'll figure this out about 4:00 in the morning when I have to get up and do this all over again.
And you had a unique experience with not only your husband, but your dad too. And so how did you navigate both?
So my dad, by the time my dad came, my husband was much older, and my dad was suffering from Alzheimer's and prostate cancer. Navigating them both was almost comical because it was so overwhelming. You couldn't do anything but just try to get some comic relief sometimes, watching the two of them together, because my husband was half paralyzed for most of his life. I was his caregiver for 27 years. And then my dad came the last 4 years of my husband's life. I had both of them in the house. And of course, I had caregiving support, another research project where you're calling different companies, trying to find out what they can do, what they can't do, sometimes private caregivers coming into the home. But it was definitely a journey.
A lot of folks don't realize how quickly you go from family member to full-time caregiver. And I'm sure you were to think of it, what did that look like and feel like on a daily basis for you? Just going to work, coming home, and what were the sounds, routines, the weight of it all? Paint a picture.
Yeah, it's exhausting. It is absolutely exhausting. It's exhausting just to think about. One of the biggest struggles for me was once I got over the fact that things are never going to be the same. Because when it first happens, something first happens to a loved one, you think, oh, we'll go to the doctors, or we'll go to the hospital, or they'll recover. But especially when we're talking about our parents as they become seniors, one health event, and things will never be the same.
How did it impact you financially and physically, emotionally? You're always have been a pretty upbeat person, but I'm sure it had in a lot of ways.
When my husband had his stroke, I remember my brother-in-law came to me. He's like, those kids need to come out of private school. You have to get rid of your second car. He was giving me all these things I had to do. And I'm like, I know this is going to be overwhelming, but just give me a moment before I just start rearranging everybody's life. Because the last thing I want to do was to disrupt the routine and flow that my children had become accustomed to. Because that wasn't going to really serve me well or serve them well. It was definitely overwhelming. And I remember my husband being in a wheelchair when he came home. And I said, we're not really doing that well financially. I think we need to give more money to the church. And he said, are you out of your mind? You just completely lost your mind. I'm like, I don't know what else to do. I said, I'm really struggling to kind of make all this work. And I did. And that's what I did. And it worked out. And he always told that story. My wife did this, and I thought she was crazy, and it really worked. So her faithfulness paid off. But definitely finance is a journey. Sure.
I want to ask you, what did it cost you that people on the outside couldn't see? Can you point to anything that it cost Karen personally?
It cost me a lot. It was a lot of personal sacrifice because I was used to exercising. I was in school, working on a master's degree. I was used to being a superstar at work, and now I couldn't do all that. I couldn't be the superstar at work. I did manage to stay in school, but certainly I had to learn how to do things differently. And I don't think people really understood how much of a strain it is to always be trying to figure out how you're going to take care of yourself.
Was there a moment for you when something shifted, when you realized I can't keep doing this alone. I need some help. When did that happen and what prompted that?
Well, I think there were many moments when I realized I can't do this by myself. I think it was more my parents. I think it was probably when my parents got to a point where they could not support me the way they were supporting me. Because they were doing a lot. They were helping me by taking them to rehab. Maybe my dad would take them and I would pick them up. We had a real rhythm going. But once my parents started aging, I was pretty much left on my own to figure it out. And then they started to have caregiving needs while my husband was having caregiving needs. The caregiving with my husband was just ongoing for 27 years. But then as my parents aged, they were not able to support me. So I knew that I can't continue on in this way if I'm going to have any kind of life without some kind of support.
So when you did get support and support started showing up, either emotionally or just through other resources, how did the caregiving experience change for you? What did it offer you, or how did it change your life when you did finally get some help?
It was just great to know that someone was coming. No matter what time, someone is coming and you will be able to get a break. So it was nice to know that I could get a break. And it was nice to have another person in the house so I didn't feel like I had to be the go-to person 24/7. That was just amazing. It's a lot of work finding caregiving support because you don't always find the right match, but you want to feel like you can leave the house and everything will be okay. But certainly I found that caregiving support was just something I just had to invest in.
All right, so I have a two-part question now. What do you wish you'd known earlier? That's the first part. And do you have any advice you would give someone who's just starting out on this journey?
What I wish I had known earlier probably would be that things will never be the same once somebody has a major health event. But just coming to that reality that things are not going to be the same, so that I have to do something different. I have to change. I have to be flexible because the situation is never going to go back exactly the way it was before. Certainly, I would tell folks to, especially when you're talking about aging parents, start making a plan now. Start thinking now about what that might look like. And part of that is having conversations while your parents are well and while they're able to have those conversations so that you will have a better understanding of what they want, what they're thinking. It may not be something that you may be able to make happen, but at least you have some idea of, do you want to be home? Are you opposed to being in a facility? What are your thoughts? My mother was very accommodating when she had her health event and she had to go to a rehab center in Ellicott City. And she had a roommate. She was very content. She ate the food. That is something my father would have never, ever done. But she was ready she wanted to come home, but she really worked with the process. So you have to remember everybody has a different personality. But I wish I would have had more of those conversations with my parents before we got to those crucial points in their health journey. Yeah.
Listening to you, I feel like with you and other families, is one thing that always stands out that most families enter caregiving sort of through crisis. They're not making life-changing decisions with a plan or a roadmap. They're kind of doing it in the darkest moments. And it's tough. Families need more than just resources. They need a lot of different things. They need a lot of support. So what I'm trying to do in my role, as I've shared with you, is kind of stand between and beside families early so that caregiving isn't something they have to survive. If they have a plan in place, it's not so daunting. So we're trying to work with people and hopefully we can close the loop on that. So if you have aging parents and you'd like to know more, please feel free to reach out to us and join this community. And we want to start before there's a crisis. So, Karen, I want to thank you for your time. It's been very helpful, and I hope you were able to touch somebody's life today. So I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the invitation to have the conversation. I wish you all the best.
Thank you for joining us. Are you ready for a plan? Contact us today for your personalized care assessment. Get started online at any time at www.vanguardcaresolutions.com.